Pull out your phone right now and you could take a photograph in under a second. The very first photograph ever taken needed 8 hours of sunlight just to capture a blurry view of some rooftops. And the man who took it died poor, mostly unknown, with almost nobody outside his small French town aware of what he had done. Today, his name is barely known. But the man who took the credit became one of the most famous inventors in history. So today we ask, who actually made that? And the answer involves a French inventor, a business partner who took all the glory, and a government that gave the whole thing away for free. Sound familiar? By the early 1800s, artists had been using a device called the camera obscura for centuries. A dark box with a tiny hole that projects an image of the outside world onto a surface inside. Painters used it constantly. Point it at a view, trace the projected image, and you had a perfect outline to paint from. But the image only existed while the light was shining through. The moment you moved the box, it vanished. Nobody had found a way to make it stay. That single missing piece, making the image permanent, is the entire history of photography. Whoever solved it would change the world. Many scientists across Europe were chasing the same goal, but one man working alone on his family estate in rural France got there first. His name was Joseph Nicéphore Niepce. Niepce was already an inventor. Years earlier, he and his brother had built one of the first ever combustion engines, powering a boat down a French river. But by the 1820s, his obsession had shifted. He wanted to capture an image directly from nature and make it permanent. He experimented with a sticky asphalt-like substance called bitumen of Judea, which hardens when exposed to light. Coat a pewter plate with it. Expose it inside a camera obscura. Wherever light hits, the bitumen hardens. Wherever it stays dark, the bitumen stays soft and washes away. In the summer of 1826, Niepce pointed his camera out of an upstairs window at his own courtyard. He left it there for 8 hours straight. When he finally removed the plate and washed it with lavender oil, an image appeared. Rooftops, a barn, a faint outline of his own courtyard. It was blurry. It was faint. You had to tilt it in the light just to see it properly. But it was real. It was permanent. It was the first photograph ever taken. He called the process heliography, writing with the sun. Niepce tried to get scientific recognition for his breakthrough. He even traveled to England hoping the Royal Society would take interest. They weren't interested. Niepce went home with his invention and almost no recognition at all. Around this time, Niepce was introduced to a Parisian artist named Louis Daguerre. Daguerre was a celebrated stage designer, famous for creating dazzling illusions of light and depth in Parisian theater sets. He had also been quietly experimenting with the same problem as Niepce, how to capture an image permanently using light. In 1829, the two men became formal partners, combining Niepce's chemical process with Daguerre's relentless experimentation. For 4 years they worked together, improving exposure times, testing new chemicals, refining the process bit by bit. Then, in 1833, Niepce died suddenly, without ever seeing the process reach its full potential. Daguerre kept going alone, continuing to correspond with Niepce's son, Isidore, who inherited his father's share of the partnership. Daguerre made the breakthrough that changed everything, exposing a silver-coated plate to iodine vapor, then developing the faint hidden image using mercury fumes. What once took 8 hours now took 20 minutes. Photography had gone from a curiosity to something genuinely useful. Daguerre named the new process after himself, the daguerreotype. Daguerre knew he had something extraordinary, but he had a problem. How do you make money from an invention before anyone has seen it? He tried selling subscriptions to fund the reveal. It barely worked. Almost nobody wanted to pay up front for something they couldn't yet see. Then, a prominent scientist and politician named François Arago stepped in with a different idea entirely. Arago proposed that the French government simply buy the rights outright and give the invention to the entire world for free. In exchange, Daguerre and Niepce's son would each receive a lifetime government pension. On August 19, 1839, the French government formally announced the daguerreotype process to the entire world, free, with one exception. Daguerre's agent had quietly secured a British patent just days earlier, so for years photographers in Britain had to pay a license fee. Within months, daguerreotype studios were opening across Europe and America. Anyone could build the equipment and start taking photographs. Within a single year, the world went from a handful of secret experiments to thousands of working photographers. The first ever selfie was taken just months later, in 1839, by an American lamp maker experimenting with the new process. Portraits, landscapes, scientific records. For the first time in human history, a moment could be captured exactly as it looked, and kept forever. And all of it rested on a partnership between two men, one who is barely remembered and one whose name became a household word. So why isn't Niepce a household name? Partly timing. He died 6 years before the public announcement. Arago's announcement in 1839 mentioned Niepce only briefly, while praising Daguerre's process in glowing detail. Niepce's son Isidore was furious. He spent years afterward trying to defend his father's legacy and set the record straight. It took until the 20th century for historians to properly credit Niepce as the true father of photography. His original 1826 photograph was even lost for over 100 years, rediscovered only in 1952. Today, it sits safely in a research library in Texas. Daguerre, meanwhile, became a celebrity. Streets, towns, and even a crater on the moon are named after him. Photography changed how humanity remembers itself. For the first time, ordinary people could see exactly what their grandparents looked like. Every photograph you have ever taken, every selfie, every holiday picture, every video call, traces directly back to that blurry view of a French courtyard in 1826. And it all started because the French government decided that some inventions are too important to be owned by just one person. So, who invented the camera? Niepce captured the first ever permanent image. Daguerre took that foundation and built something the whole world could actually use. And the French government made sure neither of them could keep it locked away. Both of them made that. History remembers one name more than the other. But now you know the full story. If this made you stop and think, subscribe. Because next week, we ask, who invented the vaccine? See you then.